Hello, viewers, and welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is David Miskias. With me now is journalist Fatou Camara from the Gambia. She's actually here in the U.S. after leaving the country and now self-imposed exile here in the United States, given the fact that she was linked to allegedly having tarnished the image of the president. And she is here to discuss the trials that she went through with the government, even ending up in prison for 25 days, facing further charges, leaving the country, and now she's here in the United States. And so we're going to be speaking to her with that on that issue, as well as just a larger look at the lack of freedom within the country. Thank you, Ms. Camara, for being with us here on Sahara TV.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be on Sahara TV. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you so much. So I think to start out, if you could just tell us, so I understand back in September you were in prison for 25 days, and then later when you were brought to court, they alleged this business of being linked to Freedom newspaper and in fact releasing some false information that against the president that the government deemed to be false, and the fact that what they charged you with is known there as tarnishing the image of the president. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it was on the 15th of September when I was picked up from my house that I was needed for some allegation that was made against me by a 24-year-old woman. But at that time, they did not say anything about tarnishing the image of the president. So when I was picked up at night, around 10 o'clock at night, some of the questions that I was asked was if I ever said that the president was dating that woman, or if I ever said that the president gave her some money. That was what I was asked. And then the question about a visit that I made to Senegal, a neighboring country to Gambia, also came up, who I met in Senegal, and if I signed a contract with a TV station to work for them over there. That was all that I was asked for until when I was released after 25 days, there was no charge because the intelligence officers made it clear that they don't have any evidence against me because my passwords were taken, my Facebook password and my email passwords. They were all, the intelligence officers asked me for them and they could not find anything, sort of me passing information to anybody. And then this day came, the 10th of October, when they told me that I was going home. It was that time that they said, well, we have to stop by the court because this issue, a lot of people are interested in it. Amnesty is writing, the Committee for the Protection of Journalists, CPJ, is also writing about it. So if we just let you go home like that, somebody could tell you, sue the government. So for us to avoid that, we're just going to go to the court, but it's just a procedure. When you go there, just listen, because we didn't find anything. Whatever you have there is something that came from the Attorney General chambers. We don't know what it is, but just go over there and listen. That was when I was taken to the court. So when I got there, they told me that I need to find a lawyer. I said, I didn't know that I was coming here and I don't have no lawyer. So it was during that time that a lawyer was there. So he decided, okay, I'll give me 5 minutes. Let me ask her what it is, and then I can take the case. And while we were there, a charge sheet was read, and it talked about tarnishing the image of the president. I was never asked that question during investigation. So I until now, I don't know how that came about.
So basically, I mean, how do you think the initial charges came? Like, how did this woman just come out of nowhere? I mean, had you had any contact with her, or is this something common to what goes on in the country that you could be accused by, or even a stranger or a neighbor, and then the authorities will show up at your house and take you away and question you upon?
Well, it is something that is becoming very common in Gambia because I don't really know this woman. I met her twice. The first time she wanted to come on my show because I have a TV show called The Fatu Show. She wanted to be on my show, so she was calling the marketing manager of the TV and said she wanted to be on my show. So I invited her, and I did not have no contacts with her at all because that was the job of the producer who met with her, got the questions for me, and it was just only for, she was on the show for like 10 minutes, and that was all. But I think she was being used by people in the government because I'm sure they have been planning this for a while. You know how it is like in Gambia, people fighting each other in positions. I think she was used to start it, and then the information got to the president that this was what I was doing, but the president ordered for my arrest.
Wow. And then in order to, like you say, maybe they were thinking of saving face or something like that, where you were saying, earlier that Amnesty and now the CPJ were writing, and so not for you to go home and get these, supposedly get these ideas of suing the government. They dropped you off at the court and trumped up these charges linking you to Freedom newspaper and tarnishing the image of the president, what they say.
Yeah, to kind of come up with something, because we never, at the investigation, we never talked about tarnishing the image of the president. And they said in September, forgetting that in September they were I was with them from the 15th of September to the 10th of October. And again, it was in September that they had my password. And a friend of mine who traveled with me to Senegal told me that the Deputy Director General at the National Intelligence Office said to her that they can give her my password for her to go into my email and plant something there and print it out so they can have evidence.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I understand the charge that you were facing under new internet laws carried a maximum sentence of 15 years. Now, based on your time being in the Gambia until up until you left, and with President Jammeh being in power since 1994, do you believe things have gotten worse over the time since he's been in power?
Of course, yes, because I was very young when the First Republic was there. That was, I think, that ended in 1994. That was when I finished high school. So Jammeh is the president that we know, but definitely he's been very, very tough. Like there's no freedom of speech. People cannot say anything. Most of the time, even when you talk on the phone and you said something, you are arrested. So it's and you cannot say anything negative about him. So that's why even our talk shows, like the show that I was running, every issue that I have to talk about has to do with social issues like marriages, divorce, and stuff like that. If you have to say anything about him in the media, it has to be positive. Even on the phone, when people are around, you cannot say anything negative about him. And even in some instances, if people have new jobs, they have to write to him and say, Your Excellency, we're asking for your blessing. So I think that's the new Gambia that we have now.
Wow. So, have you ever, prior to this incident, had you ever run into any other issues with the authorities like this?
No, I was his press officer I was his press secretary for the first time in 2011, and I was removed from the job. But that time there was an issue, something happened, and it had to do with Dr. Amadou Jane, who was jailed for printing T-shirts. So they had, according to the information that I had, they thought I had links with him because I worked for the U.S. Embassy for 3.5 years, and Amadou Jane worked for the U.S. Embassy before. Okay. So they thought I had links with him, and I was removed from my job, but I was never arrested.
Okay. I guess then one question I'd like to follow up is based on what you've seen going on in the country. Did you ever expect anything like this to happen? I mean, for it to scale up like this to the point where you felt safer actually leaving the country than waiting to face this larger charge of tarnishing the image of the president?
Well, I think this is something that nobody expected, especially the relationship that I have with the president. Like, I've been working with him for a long time, even not only as the press secretary to him, but also I was at the national TV for over 15 years reading the news. Wow. And at some point I started my own show. So we have a very good relationship. He even calls me his daughter. So that is why a lot of people are shocked. And now that this happened to me, people are scared that it could happen to anybody. So this was definitely never expected, that this man can, put me in jail for 25 days without no charge. And each time I ask the director at the intelligence services, when can I go home? He'll be like, we are waiting on the president. We told him that you are here, but he's not giving any clearance that you should go
home. I know you made a statement recently that you would not return home while President Jammeh is in power. What do you think would happen? I mean, is it more for your safety, or you just don't want to be under that system, or a bit of both at this point?
Well, it's for my safety, because since I left the Gambia, I've been speaking out. I spoke with BBC, and Franz Venkat interviewed me yesterday, and here I am talking to you. So he knows all these things. And knowing the kind of person President Jammeh is, he's very sensitive. He doesn't want anything about him out there. So, of course, if I get back to Gambia, that would be dangerous for me, because, of course, I'll be arrested upon arrival. And anything that's going to happen, I don't know, because journalists disappeared in that country. A journalist has been killed. Wow. So anything could happen.
That's actually, for leading that this way. My next question was about the journalists in the country. You said a number of them have disappeared and even been killed. Do you know about how many journalists might be in jail at any time or under?
I know right now there's a journalist that is in the prisons right now because they said he works for a newspaper
Okay.
that is owned by the president. So it is believed that this guy was writing papers for people to file asylums, and he was arrested and he is still in prison. He is refused bail. They don't want to bail him. He's denied bail, but he goes to court from the prison. And the one that disappeared, until now, nobody have any word on him. And there's another one that was killed, but until now, the government is denying that they have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't want to be one of those missing people, you know?
Right, of
my
course.
kids are too young.
Of course. So given, even the attacks on press freedom, or like you even mentioned, there is no press freedom or freedom of speech. Is there any type of even a nascent movement of opposition, even at a small grassroots level, or some on social media, or anything like that existing within the country right now?
No, you cannot do that while you are in Gambia, because if you do it, you risk being arrested. You know, of course, you'll be picked up and anything could happen to you. So the people that are in Gambia did not do that. But I remember when I worked as his press secretary the first time, I was the first press secretary to arrange a meeting for the president to meet with the journalists of the Gambia, and that went very well. But actually, the meeting took place, but it didn't end well because he wanted to, be the only one talking to the journalists. And kind of during the meeting, he said, "I'm not going to let anybody say bad things about me. If you do that, you will see what I would do." And apart from that, there was a newspaper that he closed, and I also spoke to him about opening that newspaper, and he did. So I tried my best trying to talk to him about, the fact that the journalists are not his enemies, and that it is easy to work with journalists if you understand each other. But he's always been saying that he's not going to appease any journalist, and that is not the reason why he's there. So the people that are outside of the Gambians are now trying by putting stuff online, but the ones that are in there cannot do that. There's no way they can say anything because they will be arrested.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to know, recently there were a couple of, most recently, the UN envoy to Eritrea made a rather shocking statement when he said that the citizens risk being shot by their own soldiers if they attempt to flee the country. I was wondering if there's anything, maybe not to that extreme, but can people freely leave the country in any capacity? Or, like yourself, obviously you left through Senegal, and now you're here and pretty much under self-imposed exile, like you stated. But is there any freedom of movement like that for citizens within the country?
Well, of course, they didn't know I was leaving, and
Right.
my life was in danger. That was why I had to leave, because if they knew I was leaving, they were going to catch me, of course, and also take me to the TV, because that's what they do in Gambia now. Any little crime, they have to take you to the television for you to confess and say sorry to the president that you're sorry, that this is the reason why you did this. And recently, a young boy, a 20-year-old, was trying to leave the country to go to Senegal, and from there go somewhere and seek asylum, and he was arrested. And that case is still on. So definitely, people don't have free movements. And recently, the Interior Minister of the Gambia was in Senegal to talk to Macky Sall that Gambia, they should not be allowing Gambian dissidents to live in Senegal, or people to be crossing the border and coming to live in Senegal. They've made that an issue. But on that, my take was the president should ask Macky Sall why his people are not leaving Senegal and coming to Gambia. Because if it goes to a point where the state is fighting with its own people, then that is a serious problem. And that is what is happening in Gambia. I would have loved to stay in my country. I have a big talk show there, and I'm fine. Yeah. I'm comfortable there. But if your life is at risk, the best thing is to leave, especially in a country where people can be disappeared, just like that.
So my last question, what are your plans now? And going forward, are you working on anything new? Are you trying to, maybe continue your journalistic work here in the U.S., or what's next?
Well, I would love to continue journalism work here in the U.S. because this is what I know. I went to school for media and communication, and I've been doing journalism for the past 15, 16 years because I started at a very young age. So that's what I will continue to do. But it all depends. I have to be settled here first and have my work permit and everything. But meanwhile, I might set up an online TV or an online radio station and be communicating to the people in Gambia. because I have a huge fan base. And if you go through my Facebook, a lot of people listen to me. So I'm trying to be here and, talk to the Gambian people and say, we have to do something about this because it's a big problem and we cannot be living like this. This is the 21st century. I mean, this man has everything that he needs. I mean, he's into every kind of business in Gambia. If people let him do all of that, he should at least give us peace and freedom.
Great, and thank you so much again for being with us here on Sahara TV. Viewers, that was Fatou Camara, an exiled journalist from the Gambia. She was here with us to share her tale of leaving the country and after being in prison for 25 days and facing a much larger charge of tarnishing the image of the president. She also shared with us some insight into the lack of press freedom and freedom of speech within the Gambia. Thank you, viewers, and stay tuned for more to come.